This week, General Milley's comments about the need for the military to understand ideologies that they might not themselves follow went viral. A lot of people very much enjoyed that commentary, regardless of Milley's other stances and actions and all of that. Tucker Carlson, though, not a big fan of what the general had to say. Here he is talking about it.
Hard to believe that man wears a uniform. He's that unimpressive. Notice he never defined white rage, and we should know what it is. What is white rage? Well, like drapetomania, it's one of those diseases that only affect people with certain melanin levels. It's a race-specific illness. That's what Mark Milley has learned from reading about it. That's why he's making his soldiers read about it too. They need to know. Watch.
I've read Mao Zedong. I've read Karl Marx. I've read Lenin. That doesn't make me a communist. So what is wrong with understanding? Having some situational understanding about the country for which we are here to defend. And I personally find it offensive that we are accusing the United States military, our general officers, our commissioned, non-commissioned officers of being, quote, woke.
He's not just a pig, he's stupid. So Mark Milley reads Mao to understand Maoism. He reads communist to understand communism. But it's interesting that he doesn't read white supremacists to understand white supremacy. Why not go to the source? Well, because Mark Milley would be fired instantly if he read those books, and getting fired is the one thing he doesn't want. So he reads about white rage as if it's totally real. It's a medical condition. And by the way, since it's a medical condition, at what age can you catch white rage, by the way? Most of us assumed that our 2-year-olds were just teething. Now we know it's their whiteness that's making them so angry.
Okay, like his biggest issue seems to be that this guy hasn't read about white supremacy, which I don't believe that he said he never has. And maybe he doesn't need to. Maybe he occasionally tunes into Tucker Carlson. Maybe he's getting all he needs to know about white rage and white supremacy in America. Anyway, there was a lot there, obviously. So I will throw it to our panel. Take it wherever you'd like to go based on what you saw. David, what did you think about that?
Well, a couple of things, as I always do. I disclosed that I worked with Tucker Carlson 10 years ago at MSNBC, substituted on his show. Back then, he was a very different person than he is now. Back then, that Tucker Carlson would never think of using the word pig to describe somebody who's in the US military or somebody who's in an administration. Tucker has changed, and he has changed and has decided that, okay, he can be part of this coarsening of the culture that Donald Trump seemed to embrace, and that Tucker can go there as well. And to me, it's another regrettable step, regardless of whether Tucker has a strong opinion, and maybe he does, about General Milley and what General Milley testified to. But the way that Tucker Carlson now coarsens people's language towards people like that and enables people to call other people names, it's so regrettable. And again, it's just like Donald Trump, and I suppose Donald Trump paved the way for all of us to go there. But it's another sign that our society, particularly I think on the right, has just totally lost its way. There's nothing classy, there's nothing sophisticated about what Tucker Carlson has become. And even though classy and sophisticated were things that I know Tucker aspired to at least 10 years ago, so he's failed.
Adrienne?
Oh, well, I don't know Tucker Carlson, and I didn't know him 10 years ago, but I would like to think that he's probably always the same person. He's just more emboldened now. And when he gets up on his pulpit and he starts with these asinine comments about whether they be leaders or about white supremacy, all he's doing is doubling down on propaganda, and he's not worth listening to, just like I don't think he was worth listening to then. But I think we know who this man is, and we know what his agenda is, and it's just a matter of hopefully divorcing him from having a position where he can actually influence large masses of people, because the last thing we need is more white supremacists, whether they're in a bow tie, a tie, or in any position of power.
I agree, and unfortunately though, you are getting more and more and more of him, because you had Tucker Carlson, who had his show, and then he spent the better part of last year trying to convince people to open themselves up to COVID-19 and get sick and die. And Fox decided they were going to reward him by beginning to take clips from his show and just use that during their straight news programming in the morning. Then they gave him programming on Fox Nation, and they gave him his daily during the day show now, where for instance he recently had on the bell curve guy, so that was fun. And he is just taking over the entirety of their network. And I agree with Adrienne, he's certainly emboldened, but He's emboldened on basically everything, like the anti-vax stuff. There's no hiding that. He's just openly spreading the great replacement theory. He had a sidebar that was just anti-white mania. It's like I talked on the pre-show before the damage report this morning about the fact that I don't know what gap there is between him now and Alex Jones a couple of years ago. And maybe that seems, I don't know, is that weird to say? He's even started to take up some of the mannerisms of Alex Jones, the weird laughs, he's not just a pig, he's an idiot. He's become increasingly weird. He did a segment this week about how to fight climate change, Democrats want to genetically engineer humans to be smaller and make them unable to process meat. And he did all of that because 6 years ago, there was a scientist at a convention that threw out some wild hypotheticals that he didn't even agree of about insane things that in theory could be considered. He doesn't believe any of that. Tucker Carlson this week picked up those comments from 6 years ago and said that's what Democrats and scientists want. And that is, I think, indistinguishable from Alex Jones doing a segment about how they're putting stuff in the water that's gonna make the frogs gay, because he read something in a thesis statement once. But he's not Alex Jones. He's on Fox News. He's got an audience of millions, an ever expanding audience. He's making millions of dollars per year, and he is very much a thought leader, whether it's on the military becoming effeminate as it becomes woke, or the fact that white people are the most aggrieved and victimized people in our society. He is unfortunately, perhaps now, driving more of what conservatives think on a daily basis than even Donald Trump. At the very least, until Donald Trump starts to do his weekly rallies, Tucker Carlson has very much picked up that mantle. I don't know, any thoughts, any disagreement?
No, I think the comparison with Alex Jones is actually a wise one. I mean, the GOP has long been the anti-intellectual party. Tucker Carlson knows that he can pull a fast one over on most of his audience. And somehow, some Republicans find this kind of behavior as entertaining or sort of funny. I guarantee that Tucker wrote in on his script, smile and laugh out of that clip. So he would be able to be theatrical and laugh at the audience. I mean, this is a game for him, and it almost seems like he's been given some cover by Fox News legal department, because when Tucker Carlson's been sued, they said, "Oh, you don't really need to believe Tucker Carlson. He's not a journalist. You shouldn't believe him. This is just entertainment." And so Tucker's like, "Okay, if I'm just entertainment, I'm gonna take this to whatever extreme I feel like I want to take it, whatever the audience might desire." And again, that's a dangerous place, and it's dangerous not just for Fox News and for Republicans, but it's dangerous for the whole country.
Yep, I agree with David. It's incredibly dangerous, particularly because our population seems to really invest in keeping people ignorant and dumb. So people don't have the analytical ability. They don't have the knowledge base. They don't hunger for more information. So they're willing to just accept what Tucker Carlson is willing to divvy out. And because he's divvying out propaganda, he is essentially pushing a bunch of agendas that are systems of oppression. And hey, people like to be led, a lot of sheep. So he's sitting here in a position of power, giggling when he can. So as David has acknowledged, it gives his legal team, pretty much puts him in a position they can say, "Oh, he's not even taking himself seriously. He was just joking, he's laughing, it's satire." And the thing is, it's really just our downfall. There are little trickle bits of democracy that chip away every time there's a Tucker Carlson show.
Yeah, and you're right. There's sheep who want to be led, and unfortunately, one of the best ways to lead people is to point them at something that they're supposed to hate or disdain, feel some sort of condescension towards or whatever. And I get it, surface level, shallow glass houses. I'm talking about Tucker Carlson. I clearly don't anticipate that you'll come out of this discussion liking him more, but at the very least, he is a powerful, rich member of the media. Tucker Carlson every day just gives these broad categories of sorts of people that you're not supposed to care about, you're not supposed to feel any empathy for. So much of right-wing media just seems to be now designed to both distract people while their economic agenda is pursued. And they got what they wanted, they got their tax cuts. Every time a Republican president comes in, they're gonna get their massive tax cuts, and then they're gonna just basically plop there for a few years and stop the government from functioning. And so they distract, but they also get you to hate and to fear, and there's always gonna be some group, whether it's youth trans athletes or whether it's teachers who want you to know about the accurate history of the United States athletes, or now even if it's the military or the cops, not for substantive reasons, not for the war crimes or for the brutality, but if they have like a racial sensitivity training, or if they acknowledge that they read about white domestic terrorists, it's just such a corrosive thing, and I can't help but feel quite powerless just watching it grow ever larger. Tucker Carlson every year seems to have more influence over Fox News, more influence over right-wing media, more influence potentially over politicians. He had an influence over Donald Trump during the pandemic, and I just don't know what we're supposed to do about it, considering all of the damage that it's clearly going to do to America.
I was just gonna say, look, it's always been the Fox News playbook, and that is to get their base riled up and angry at something, and then say, oh, but we're on your side. In this case, oh, be very afraid of General Milley, but I'm Tucker Carlson, I'm on your side, and we're gonna have a little secret, you and I together. We know what's really going on. Well, and it brings the audience in to Tucker Carlson's show, and they feel a great affinity to Tucker. That's always been the playbook. The difference now is that they're so extreme in the language and so coarse in the approach, and they've thrown whatever standards that even Fox News had 20 years ago right out the window. And I guess that's the way society is going in the right wing of the United States these days. And Donald Trump gets some credit. Tucker Carlson could have stopped it, I suppose. He could have said, no, I'm gonna take the high road, but he's playing right along, and it's sickening.
If the Lord decides to snatch Tucker Carlson's larynx, I wouldn't be disappointed.
I'd pray for that. Yeah, well, look, the Lord might not intervene. One would hope some of the other still powerful right-wingers might. It was revealed this week, we don't have time to get to it, unfortunately, that he's spreading gossip about all these people, openly mocking Sean Hannity, spreading negative stories about Donald Trump. Hey, Republican alphas, you're just gonna let him punch you in the face like that? You're not gonna do anything about it? Sean Hannity, he's spitting in your face. Donald Trump, he's trying to make you out to be a laughingstock so that he can run and win in 2024. Do something about it, you fake alphas.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR, so those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.